One of my many careers was that of a college professor. As a college professor, I really did care about my students, and I wanted them to learn as much as they could and be all that they could be. And there was a couple of things that happened while I was a college professor that really made me question what we were doing and how I could actually make a difference in people's lives by working a little bit harder and looking at different things. One of those issues was we had this student who was really a poor student. But yet in visiting with him, he could memorize every batting average, every one-loss thing. He was a sports nut. And he knew everything about sports, so it had nothing to do with learning. He could memorize numbers that I couldn't memorize. It had to do about passion. His passion was sports. He could care less about history or other courses he was taking. And this made me start questioning, because in society, if you don't get good grades, we sometimes put you down and think that you're not a good contributor. But then the real change came along when I was teaching management, now referred to mostly as leadership. And I was teaching the old theory X, theory Y, autocratic versus fun-loving, nice, caring about people. And my students did not see themselves the way they really were. In other words, they thought they were God's gift to management, and they had all of these skills, and as I tried to teach them new skills, they avoided them because they thought they already had them. So I went searching. I did a lot of research. What can I do to help people see themselves for what they really are? And I ran across assessments, specifically a behavioral assessment. And I started using this in my teaching, and it immediately changed everything that happened. First of all, they started seeing themselves the way others saw them. And then we started talking to them about strategies of helping them adapt to win in any type of environment that they found themselves in. We also had this concept that it's not what you are, it's what you do with what you are, and that everybody can be a winner, and you'll be a better winner if you really understand yourself. So the awareness of self is critical. Yet in society, we like to start out by talking about other people and learning as much as we can about other people. But it really should start at home, and that's what I've spent the last 30-some years doing, is teaching people on how to use assessments and incorporate them into their businesses to make a difference in people's lives. Now let's talk about why study behavior. Behavior is really unique, and it tells us how we do what we do. And one of the biggest hows is how we communicate. But you know, our brain is actually hardwired on how we want to receive information. I can teach you to adjust your speech faster, slower, change your tone of voice. But you know, I cannot train your brain on how you want to receive information. I do believe that has been hardwired for you. And if you want to receive data and you need data to move forward, that's what your brain is going to be looking for. And it's going to be looking for it in your format. So when we study behavior, we're starting to learn how we want to be communicated to, and then we can understand how others want to be communicated to also. Another important thing about behavior, it does allow us to understand how we go about solving problems and making decisions, because there's a certain pattern that we have. We either get data, analyze that data before we move forward, or maybe we shoot from the hip. So behavior does play an important role in our daily life, and understanding our behavior is the first step in really making a difference in our life. What role does behavior play in performance? I like to look at when we match people to a job with their behavior, it takes away stress. Stress is a big retardant when we're dealing with performance. And by matching people to a job, they have the energy that can flow directly to the job and not energy that flows to adapting our behavior. Also, when we match people to jobs, they're naturally energized. They look forward to going to work on Monday morning because it really takes exactly what they bring to the job and puts it to use. So we're taking advantage of our natural talents. Let's say you're competitive. Well, competitive people need a job where they can actually compete. Sales is one of those jobs that they can compete, because they're sort of a scorecard at the end of the day, the results you've got. People with a sense of urgency need to be in a job where they can apply that sense of urgency to make things happen and get things done. Others, planning and organizing is one of their great strengths. And again, by putting them in a job that will use that strength. We all are unique. We all have our own unique talents, and we must find a home for our talents to go. And behavior does bring a little part of that helps us understand how we can use this to better ourselves personally and to help the organizations which we work for. A part of our behavioral assessment is to actually look at 12 unique talents that people have and put them on graphs and also talk about them in the report. You can look at these 12 talents and see that people are different and that it is basically impossible to have all 12 of these. We as people cannot do everything for every job. Jobs have certain things that demand more of this and less of that, and that's what's important for us to understand what it is we bring to the job so that we can take full advantage of our talents. I have spent the last 30 years doing research on what makes people unique. I've studied people in sales, in management, customer service, engineering, you name the different jobs. We've taken a look at all of them from a behavioral standpoint. And what I've really discovered is that our behavior is one of the parts that makes us somewhat unique, but it's not all of the picture. So let's take a look at those things that really people bring to the job. At TGI, we've developed the dimensions of superior performance, and this allows us to look at each unique part of people. We start out by looking at emotional intelligence, center core of all people. And emotional intelligence is a major player when it comes to performance in certain jobs. Next to emotional intelligence is basically our intelligence also. Hard to measure, but yet an important part of making people unique. Another thing that makes people unique is their motivators. Everybody is motivated slightly different, and it ties into their development from the years when they're very young and continues throughout their life. Once a motivator has been satisfied, sometimes it'll change a little bit, but we have found that our motivators are more dynamic than what we used to think. We used to think they were carved in stone and never changed throughout life. But today we find out that our motivators really do make an impact on performance and make a big impact on what makes us unique as people. Along with that, we also bring our education and our training. Everybody's education and training is different and unique and an important part of making us different in people. Along with that, we bring our experiences. You have to admit, all experiences are different, and what we're really learning is that experiences actually lead to the development of many competencies or soft skills. And that's where our uniqueness really comes in, is the skills that we have developed through those experiences. Okay? We also bring our personal skills, those competencies that we've developed over our lifetime. And they start as soon as you start interacting with people, you start developing some people skills. And certainly some people will be better at people skills than others. So we must also take a look at another uniqueness that we all have, and that's our worldview. How do we see the world? Intrinsic, extrinsic, systemic. Makes us unique as to that particular view. And the last thing I talk about when people bring to the job is their behavior. Their behavior is on the outside. Behavior is observable. We could go to the airport today and we could watch people and draw some conclusions about their behavior. These other factors, we could not really draw any conclusions about them without interviewing and talking to them and discovering more about them. But behavior is how we do what we do and makes us very unique along that line. And you can see that all of these features that people bring to the job, behavior is only one of those components, and that's why we start with behavior, but we also at TTI have 5 sciences that help us understand exactly what people bring to the job through those 5 sciences, and then we also acknowledge education and training along with experiences as a major part of what people bring to performance.